Do this. Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of
Good morning, afternoon,
Watch
and
Party.
good evening, everybody. Welcome to
Okay, I've got feedback coming in.
You should have no feedback now. I've muted the other computer.
Okay. Oh, got a lot going on. Okay, yeah, Miss Swift, it's 5 seconds in. The sync point is 5 seconds in from the very beginning. I've got the lion, the MGM lion roar first, and then the Orion. So we're gonna just do 5 seconds in at about the lion. Um, okay, is the echo gone? Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yeah, the echo was my fault. I'd
Oh,
forgotten that I'd got YouTube with a volume on my other PC.
okay. Um, all right. Well, we've got some new hardware I'm working with. I had my PC packed up. My movers are here now, trying to beat the storm coming in. So if you hear I have a stampede above me, then that's just the movers. So without further ado, welcome James to another watch party. This was your suggestion, right?
Yeah, it's what I think is a very underseen part of both Gene Hackman and Andrew Davis's filmography. But there's a very good reason why it was underseen. It's not that it's not any good, because it's actually very good. It's that in the summer of '89, when it was released, there was something called Batman taking up all the cinema screens.
Yeah.
And there was also something called Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So,
Yeah.
a kind of a conspiracy action movie with Gene Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones didn't really cut the mustard with the audience then.
Yeah, I remember that summer. So, without further ado, I'll count us down and we'll be starting at about 5 seconds in. If everybody's ready, we got five, four, three, two, one. Go ahead and start. And this movie is just under 2 hours long. So, all right. So, without further ado, um, yeah, the summer of '89 was a blockbuster movie for everybody but this movie. So I had never heard of it until you mentioned it last week. So I did a pre-watch last night. And so let's hear from everybody whether you've already watched this, whether this is your first time, whether you had even heard of it. Um,
I mean, I
this
first,
isn't, go ahead.
I mean, I would have first seen it probably when it was released on Blu-ray over here, because it was released on one of the cult titles, boutique labels, 88 Films. So I thought, I like the cast, I like the director, so I picked it up. I mean, basically, it wasn't. It was released over here 15 months after it was released in the USA. So it, it basically died in the box office there. Did no business over here, but I think it sits in a strong run of films that Andrew Davis had at this point in the 80s and 90s, because he'd come off Steven Seagal's debut film, Above the Law, immediately before this. So from Steven Seagal to Gene Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones, so he kind of must have liked working with difficult actors.
Yeah, and okay, so let me uh, we'll introduce everybody in the chat, and then we'll get their take on whether they had heard of this movie. But you're right, 1989 was a tough year for any movie except those blockbusters.
Mm.
And then, of course, with the cable market and then the rental market, this would have come out the same time a lot of those other blockbusters came out on video. So it's been around, obviously, and got a lot of attention, but yeah, a lot of us had never heard of it before. Um, Okay, so welcome everybody once again. And in the chat, in the YouTube chat, we've got Hell If I Know, Miss Swift, Alex Peacock, Edward the Black Prince, Eric, Mad Matt. Oh, and here's a new one, and I'm going to butcher that name if I try to pronounce it. But yeah, looks like we're having
Verkligen utdanning.
Oot Danny. Yeah, welcome,
Tight.
welcome.
That's it. If I've grotesquely mispronounced your name, no offence intended.
There's no offense. Okay, so we got Calbot. Let's see who else. Eric. Um, and so yes, I am going to butcher that first name. So if I just call you Danning, Oot Danning, you're watching it on Pluto with ads. I do know it's available on some of the free services with ads. So you watch the ad, or I think you can fast forward. Eventually, we'll all be at the same point at the same time. Um,
UK people, it's on Amazon Prime without ads.
and I think free out here in the States, we will have ads. And let's see. Let me go back and we'll see. Um, and who had mentioned that this was their first time, they'd never watched it before. Um, yeah, Oot Danning never heard of this package. Okay.
Yep, Calbot,
Um,
first he heard of it was when I mentioned it last week.
yep. And I think a lot of people had that same reaction.
I think
Edward the Black Prince, this is his first time viewing.
it is a film
Eric.
I think that should be better known because it's also sort of part of Hackman's run of decent leading roles that he had in the late 80s and early 90s. So basically, before this, he'd been doing Mississippi Burning, and then 2 years later, it's Unforgiven, and that's a point in his career where he then segues more into supporting roles rather than leading man roles.
Yeah, and this was I think that's one of your points last week about picking this is one of his starring roles, if not the first.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, because the DVD and Blu-ray posters and the covers and things, they have Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones on. In fact, the cinema theatrical posters made no mention of Tommy Lee Jones apart from in a tiny little box in the corner because
hmm,
Tommy Lee Jones wasn't a big star there.
well, that's true.
The posters just said Hackman.
And of course, Joanna Cassidy, who had done Blade Runner, she was probably, and she got top billing over Tommy Lee Jones, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
From
but she'd previously appeared with Hackman in a film called Under Fire, where he was a television journalist in a war zone. Opposite then, I think Nick Nolte.
oh, very interesting.
And this
Um,
is also going to be a great film for you to spot many, many, many of that guy, because there are lots of that guy actors in this. And there are also lots of actors who, if you've seen other Andrew Davis films like Under Siege or The Fugitive or Collateral Damage or Chain Reaction, you're going to be going, I've seen that guy.
I already see one. He is in the back as one of the soldiers. He went on to, I know he's one of those guys, but I do know him from the Blacklist. He is one of the major players in that show.
Yeah, the black guy immediately behind Hackman
Mhm.
was a regular with this director. I saw him in Collateral Damage, working with Arnie only the other day.
Fantastic. Um,
And I suppose the other reason that might be related to the film itself, why this perhaps might have disappeared a bit on release, is we're starting with a peace conference with the Soviet Union talking about nuclear disarmament, Except, unfortunately, at some point between the film being made and the film being released, the Soviet Union inconsiderately ceased to exist.
Yeah, and for anybody that was alive back in the 80s when we had the Cold War still going on, there was the collapse of the Soviet Union in, I believe, the beginning of 89, and this came out in the summer of 89. So that's when everything changed. Um,
It's one of
and
the ways that things like the James Bond series are actually quite forward looking. That they in those films they tended to change it from the book where the Russians were the primary villains to having them sort of be a secondary antagonist because they'd said early on, well, what if this Cold War ends and we've got a load of films that have baddies in who aren't the baddies anymore?
yeah, yep. Okay, well, I am turning my attention to Discord. I don't want to forget Discord.
Cool.
We have Mad Matt, Calbot, Edward the Black Prince, and Mr. Furzel's Miss Swift. All right, we got a full house on YouTube and Discord today. Um, so I'm glad, even with the time change, that everybody was able to join us today. Um, Yeah, Calbot mentioned Berlin Wall came down in the fall of 89. Soviet Union limped along until 91 or 92. Yeah, there was, as a child, oh, here we go. My mind is all over the place, but um,
We're about to get some
here we go
action.
to these hikers that seem to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Um, but anyway, yeah, back in the 80s, as a kid growing up, we knew the tension that had been going on. Um, Nuclear war was like in the back of our head. It was always talked about as a possibility, and it played out in the media that we consumed on a regular basis. And you have movies like Threads in the UK. You had the day. What is it? The Day After Tomorrow out here in,
No,
in
no,
the
the day
US.
after tomorrow is the bad weather movie where
Yeah,
global
and it
climate change happened. You're thinking of the day after.
the day after. That's the one. Yes,
The
the
day
day
after is
after.
the one where Jason Robards survives a
That's the
nuclear
one.
strike by driving a Volvo. The day after
Yes.
tomorrow is
Tomorrow.
where America is frozen overnight.
Is that the one with John Cusack? The day after tomorrow.
No, that
Who's the big
one
star?
is 2012.
Okay,
The
that's
day after
2012.
tomorrow is Dennis Quaid
Okay,
and is
and
based on what must be a highly scientifically credible novel because it's written by Whitley Strieber.
okay. So yeah, it was the day after. That was that TV movie. And it was what's
And
interesting.
I just spotted in the crowd of journalists Ike Papis by the camera playing Ike Papis. And
Is he the guy behind the camera? He's the one that's going like
he's the
this.
guy behind the camera. Now, Andrew Davis was big into bringing conspiracy theories into the films he worked on. And Ike Papis was brought into this for a very good reason. He was the last person to speak to Lee Harvey Oswald. He said to Lee Harvey Oswald, "Have you got anything to say in your defence?" And was immediately pushed aside by Jack Ruby, who then gunned Lee Harvey Oswald down. So featuring him in this is a sort of a bat signal to conspiracy theorists that there might be more going on than meets the eye.
Yeah, and I think that the movie sets the tone for the disgruntled general who doesn't want to play along with whatever it is that he was approached to do. Um, and we have the scene that we now have this peace treaty being signed. So
Would
we
it
have the undercurrents of, well,
would it be
probably
a
not
smooth
everybody's going to
for
want
me to
that.
Would it be a spoiler for me to say that one of the original cast Star Trek films essentially stole the plot of this?
I don't think that would be a spoiler. Um, so anyway, in
Because
the comments,
I think Star Trek Six, The Undiscovered Country, might have been, well, Nicholas
hmm,
Meyer might have seen this. And Nicholas Meyer, of course, also made an action movie in the 80s or 90s with Gene Hackman, a Cold War thriller. What
so
was
we
that?
have our first action event that those hikers were not what they seemed. And okay, so here we go. The action starts. We still don't know why, but
It's the 80s, so we're getting a lot of Uzis waved about already.
yes. But yeah, we've got some action. Okay, so in the chat, Miss Swift says no. 2012 is Kuzak. The day after tomorrow is the Superstorm with Quaid and Gyllenhaal, Jake Gyllenhaal. The day after is the miniseries with Robards and Gutenberg. Okay, we're getting it all squared away. And then who had mentioned Calbot had mentioned Moonfall. we're not gonna we're not gonna watch that movie. I've seen it once and I thought it was pretty preposterous, even for a
In
sci-fi
fact,
movie.
my direct connection I'm making to Star Trek 6 is the year after Hackman made this, he made Company Business with Nicholas Meyer writing and directing, who, of course, wrote and directed Star Trek 6. I think he might have watched the film his leading man had just been in and cribbed some things from it.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible because you know how ideas just morph into other ideas, and it's quite possible that they borrowed elements of this story.
But then
Um,
this story is itself not necessarily entirely original because you can see lots of antecedents in it as it goes along with things like maybe the Manchurian Candidate or 3 Days of the Condor.
yeah.
Even for a tiny stretch of the film that we're going to come up to shortly, you could say it's riffing off The Last Detail or maybe even Midnight Run when it looks like the film might go in that direction.
Yeah, now that was an interesting movie, Midnight Run. So Ut Danning says, imagine trying to go to the cinema the night be, the right day of the premiere if it says the day after on the poster.
Hmm.
Alex Peacock says, company business, is that the one with Matthew Broderick? That makes not a whole lot of sense.
No,
Um,
Company Business has, who is it? Mikhail Baryshnikov, who was a Russian dance director as a Soviet spy who Hackman is taking to a hostage exchange that
okay.
predictably goes wrong.
Yeah, I can't recall that movie. I'm gonna have to check that one out. So we have
Again,
that guy.
it's one that vanished at the box office. 18 million budget, 1.5 million takings.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
that gets
might
pulled.
so that might also be another reason why Hackman is moving to supporting roles. Is that the films that he was doing at the end of the 80s and the 90s, where he was in the lead, just weren't doing the business at the box office anymore.
Yeah. Well, he's a very versatile actor. Um, he's done he and he had such a long career.
Hmm?
But you're right, carrying a movie, he does a great job here. Yeah, but for some reason, Audiences
you know,
maybe don't gravitate towards him as a leading man in the sense that the name would carry the movie and make a ton of money. But he does deliver solid performances like each and every time.
I mean, I think there is a thing that as an actor gets older, unless probably they're Tom Cruise and the aging process, that kind of someone who's the age of your dad or maybe your granddad is less likely to be drawing the young people out to the cinema.
Yeah, that's true. There are a few actors that, yeah, John Hurd, Mad Matt, and then did anybody else notice it? No, Mad Matt, that was John Hurd. Um, yeah,
You,
1 year later,
you
Mad Matt
casting
says this guy won't be able to locate his son. Loses his son. Yeah, I mean, this is truly an all-star cast. Um, okay, Alex Peacock says, "Oh right, I'm wrong. I'm thinking Family Business with Sean Connery and Matthew Broderick. I think that was the one where doesn't he get drawn into like a mafia family or thinks it's a mafia family, but
no,
it's
no, no,
not.
no.
What am I thinking?
That's a different film with Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando. Gotcha. So, so Gene Hackman's character Gallagher, John Gallagher, is going to take the fall for whatever it was that went wrong before. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, we're gonna kind of see how he likes
And,
taking the fall for that.
and here we're introduced to someone who might be what's known in conspiracy circles as the Patsy.
The patsy. Well, isn't that what Oswald said he was? Like right before he was gunned down, he said, "I'm a patsy."
I refer you back to the appearance of Ike Pappas. No, Mad Matt, Risky Business is the one with Tom Cruise in a pair of Y-fronts.
One of his first starring roles, I believe, if not his very first starring role. So it is tragic what happened to Gene Hackman. Um, I guess the investigation into what happened to him and his wife is probably winding down because I think they have
Well,
a
they,
very good idea about what happened and the timeline.
well, essentially, they've said that his wife died of a virus she'd got. He was suffering from advanced Alzheimer's, something the world didn't know because their life had been so private. So he basically spent a week carrying on doing whatever his daily routine would have been, maybe even not knowing she was dead,
Yeah,
until not taking his heart medication because he had Alzheimer's killed him.
yeah. Um, and from anybody who has a loved one or has experience with what Alzheimer's can do, it probably was, and I hate even thinking about it, but it might have been his blessing and his saving grace that he did suffer from it at the end. And they said he might not have even known his wife had passed. So rest in peace, Gene. Um, yeah, he'll be missed.
And it's and here we have Mr. Tommy Lee Jones, who, as I said before, at this point he wasn't actually that much of a star. He'd done stuff and been in all sorts of things, from like the pilot episode of Charlie's Angels to being sort of co-lead in Rolling Thunder with William Devane. But this was kind of the point where he got into doing a couple of sort of villainous supporting roles, which got then Andrew Davis to get him in this, get him in Under Siege, where he has more screen time than Steven Seagal, then get him into The Fugitive. Man, as I was saying, Andrew Davis, real glutton for punishment with his repeated Seagal, Tommy Lee Jones, Hackman jobs. That's lots of difficult ego-ridden actors in one place. And then it's The Fugitive that basically gets him an Oscar and blows in, arguably made Tommy Lee Jones' career.
It was rather interesting to see him get nominated for that role. He was very um, commanding and very charming in that movie. So I'll give him that. And so the
Which is,
Academy saw fit to give him an Academy Award for it. It was a very good movie.
it's a very good movie, but it's one of those ones where you're surprised that someone from it has actually got a nomination, never mind one. I mean, I always think the one that really surprised me was when Kevin Kline got Best Supporting Actor for A Fish Called Wanda.
That was a surprise. So you never know. You never know why they're voting, why the Academy votes the way they do, who is who
Oh,
is owed
Tommy
an
Jones
Oscar.
here, dropping in some conspiracy theory material with his talk of the military industrial complex having the entire US establishment by the balls.
So yeah, we have the plot kind of being laid out, and so um,
And
yeah,
this is the kind of scene that made that when I first saw it made me think it might go down a kind of a last detail or midnight run route, because you're kind of thinking, well, maybe what's going to happen is these two people are going to have to go on the run together and team up. But no, that's not what's going to happen at all.
nope. So yeah, all he's supposed to do is escort him back to the states for a court martial.
And I presume he's being court-martialed for his decidedly non-regulation haircut.
Very much so. That is not regulation. So here we go. Pay attention to this guy in the white hat, in the sailor hat. Oh, old Johnny Devitt was using the wrong account. So you just showed up, huh? Okay, welcome. Let me see. I'm just a little scatterbrained today. Just a little. Movers weren't supposed to come till next week. Because of the weather, they came today. Okay. Nothing like a good old fashioned fight in the men's bathroom.
A
So,
fight that everyone else in the men's bathroom, apart from Gallagher, was in on.
absolutely. And why? This is a question I have often in these action movies. When you're taking out someone, why would they not kill him now? So I
Well,
asked myself that question, and I think later on it kind of gets revealed why
presumably, they
he did.
hadn't realised that he was a prototype for Sam Gerard, and would go out and single-handedly hunt down his man.
Yeah. And you kind of wonder in these movies, just kill him, just kill the guy.
Yes, as
And then
Scott Evil would say, just shoot him in the head.
shoot him in the head. But I find myself saying that a lot. But if they were to, then the movie would then it would be over. Where's the intrigue? Where's the plot points? Where's later in the movie it comes to bite you in the ass because you didn't kill the guy when you were supposed to.
Now we are
Yeah,
down
I
on
know, Alex.
run, we are on the run-down streets of Chicago now for the rest of the movie, and that was all down to Andrew Davis, who basically shoots pretty much any film he can on the streets of Chicago. Originally, the original script had sort of pretty much everything set in Camp David from this point onwards, except Andrew Davis thought that was kind of locked down and confined and didn't give you much to do in terms of moving the plot up. So he moved it to Chicago, where he previously done Code of Silence and Above the Law. For anyone who wants to see Chuck Norris or Steven Seagal in Chicago. And you'll probably find lots of these bits of Chicago we move through you'll recognise if you've seen The Fugitive, because he was
And I
back
was just going to say this is exactly where the fugitive takes place. And having
all
never been to
important
Chicago, a lot of the
important plot
same.
point. He has gone thinking he's finding to see Lee Jones has gone home, only to find the photo not Tommy Lee, it's the Patsy.
Oh, you were a little. Was anybody else hearing that garbled, or was it just me? You seem to be a little garbled.
Yes,
Uh-oh, we lost him. Yeah, exactly, Alex. I thought it was me because I'm using a new computer. I think we lost James. All right, well, we'll give him a minute for him to come back. Yes, we had a couple of you mention, is this a Christmas movie? Um, yeah, just because it's set on Christmas, maybe we can consider this a Christmas movie. Um, and so for it being set in Chicago, um, oh,
um,
hello, James.
I have plugged in an Ethernet cable to overcome my unstable Wi-Fi.
Yes. So yeah, about I was just wrapping up about Chicago. Um, so the first part of this movie, you had the shots in Russia, and then part of it was supposed to be in Germany.
Yeah,
Um, but I had done a little bit of research on this movie, and supposedly most of it was even shot in Chicago.
hmm.
Um, so with the L train, the elevated trains, which is completely recognizable in any movie that's set in
Well, the
Chicago.
thing is,
Um,
historically, it was actually, and that's a very stylish priest there in that red shirt. I like it, but it was very difficult to actually make movies on the streets of Chicago because when Mayor Daley was in charge, he didn't like the bad reputation Chicago had got for violence, so he had a strict ban on anything that involved guns being filmed on the streets of the city.
what a shame, because now isn't there? Yeah, Daley was mayor for a while, wasn't he?
Well,
Um,
you had a series of Mayor Dailies because there was even one at the time of that TV series Due South was filmed because Then Tim
Ah.
Fraser would be walking into the city past the sign saying you were welcomed by Mayor Richard Daley the Third or whatever it was. But I think this was the original Mayor Daley, the one who'd been mayor during the infamous Chicago Democratic Convention, where you had a lot of police on hippie action.
Mm. Yes, that was Cowbot. Very good. That was Pam Grier. And she is credited in this movie, and
She
you would
was
think that she has a bit more scenes in it.
well,
She
she
only
was
has a few.
basically brought into this movie because Andrew Davis had cast her in his previous film Above the Law, where she'd had a much bigger role as Steven Seagal's totally badass partner.
Yeah, and her absolutely brilliant role in Jackie Brown. I do have that on maybe a future watch party.
Which I
So
say, it's my favourite Tarantino, but it's also the least Tarantino.
okay, James, I've got to go sign some papers. I will only be gone maybe 10 minutes. Can you handle it?
Yes, we have just witnessed the tragic demise of Mrs. the Patsy.
Yes, Mrs. the Patsy. All right, gang, I'll be back.
Let's have a look and see what's going on with you lot in Discord. Yes, Pangria. Lots of Pangria. Now, Chicago looks kind of cold, and I think this is one of the things that gave them a bit of a continuity problem. That when they shot part of the film that was set in Chicago, it snowed, and when they shot some of the other parts, it didn't snow. So there was much fake snow. I think if that's Gallagher being friendly, I hate to see what he's like when he's being unfriendly. Well, her career's going all right. She's an officer and outranks him, where he's in his 50s and he's stuck as a sergeant. So, once again, I point you out the incredibly stylish red shirt worn as part of Tommy Lee Jones's priest disguise. Now, here we have him on the lookout for, I don't know, some handy book depository or something that he could loiter in while he waits to do whatever dastardly thing he wants to do. Now, apparently, Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones didn't get on terribly well while they were making this because Hackman was an actor who believed less is more. So all the time he was trying to cut down the dialogue because he thought you could communicate the plot and the story through the power of your acting, with your acting conviction. Unfortunately, all the lines he was wanting to cut belonged to Tommy Lee Jones, who took a somewhat contrary view about having his part cast to the cutting room floor. Do priesthood shirt colours denote ranks? I don't know. going to go down I refuse to go down the rabbit hole of web pages about Vickers shirts. Traditionally, they are black, although some priests prefer to wear coloured shirts because they think it's less intimidating and formal. So there you are. He's just wearing it because he's a hip, trendy, trend-setting priest. Now, my question for Americans is: the sign says Fort Belvoir. Is that Belvoir? Because in England we would pronounce that Beaver. Real Walter Henk is undercover at the local fascist bar, where, where the Illinois State Nazi Party goes to hang out. Oh, Beaver or Belvoir depends on region, according to Miss Swift. So I thought I just wasn't sure whether it was one of these peculiar English pronunciations. I've not realised it might have applied elsewhere. So, so Greer is playing what must be the most glamorous filing clerk in the Marine Corps.
Okay, I'm back. Thank you, James.
Hi, you've missed the trip to see the Illinois State Nazi Party.
Oh, that's right. He infiltrated them and picked up as a cover. He picked up those pamphlets, those leaflets.
By cover, you mean damning evidence.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Gallagher
Ah,
has worked out there's something going on, and people are not who they say they are. If only Andrew were here from Creative EC, he could be identifying all these lovely period green screen PCs for us.
yes, he could. And this is high tech back then. Um, and it was something like this that I have back in school days when they started to teach us how to program. And us little kids in school were like, "This is cool," and this was considered high tech.
Yeah, my computer lessons were on BBC microcomputers that ran in BASIC. So effectively, I
Hmm.
learnt how to print the program line 10, print wanker. Line 20, go to line 10.
Yes, I remember that. That's how we started to learn to
And
kind
that
of
was,
code.
and
And there was basic, and I believe there was that was when C was it C plus started coming out. And from there, I just was lost. There's no way.
well, I think my old Sinclair Spectrum was the last computer I had where I had any real understanding of how what was under the hood worked, because I could actually program pretty basic games on that.
Yes, Miss Swift, I'm getting a bad vibe about how long Pam Grier's character is for this world. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes these movies will telegraph to the audience what's going on, and they'll use the music cues, the long shots. You have all of those standard cues as to what's going to happen.
Colonel Gallagher. As I said, her career has gone a lot better than her sergeant ex-husband.
Yeah, Colonel. Yeah, I was going to say Colonel. I thought he was a sergeant. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And what I find interesting is you don't actually I don't think you actually see her body. They don't focus in on her body anywhere.
so we have a heavy presence here from the denizens of Hill Street.
Oh, that's right. I missed the part where they took him into custody. Ah, the plot thickens.
Yes, when, when,
Hmm.
when when they were doing their typey computer searches in the army base, it pinged up on someone evil's computer that they were doing a search. And then, not half an hour later, Pam Grier was dead.
Yep.
Death by goon.
And then you fast forward. So this was 89. You fast forward about, oh, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, and you had widespread internet, and that was when home PCs started to make their rounds. I couldn't even tell you when I had my first home PC,
When,
probably 96, 97, I
when,
think,
I,
and then it
when I went to
just took off.
university at Cambridge, they had internet then, but that was in terms of the colleges had computer
Mhm.
rooms and maybe the rich students. I had a manual typewriter, so not that much good for looking up information.
Exactly.
But it
And then
did
you just
make a
see how
very
far.
clickety clack noise as I typed.
I was given, for my high school graduation, I was given a manual typewriter, and it came in handy in college. Boy, times have changed.
Yeah, and now Gallagher has decided the only thing to do is go on the lam.
You know, all I can say is it's not a very secure military facility if you can just open a window and crawl out. Um,
On the other hand, in the original script, this would all have been taking place in Camp David, which would have had to have been a not remotely secure presidential compound.
yeah. Oh, Alex Peacock says always grew up with a home PC, Apple IIc S in the 80s. Oh wow. And Mad Matt had a basic programming cartridge for the Atari 2600. That was early 80s.
No,
Wow.
don't worry, hell if I know. Hackman is not going to turn into some sub Liam Neeson action hero. He's instead going to team up with even more really wonderful character actors against a goon squad of those guys.
Those guys. Yes, and this gentleman right here in the suit, wasn't he one of those bathroom thugs?
Yep.
He was the guy with the little white sailor hat.
I think he was the one, Buttface, who was recommended that he shouldn't look in the mirror because it might break.
Ah. So so this movie is, I mean, it's moving right along.
Yeah.
Um, and we have a lot more intrigue, obviously, as the movie goes on and more people are
It's basically
attacked.
we've had 40 minutes of basically putting the pieces into place, and
Yes.
now it's getting to go full on conspiracy come action movie.
Yep. And now they're going to have to start putting all these pieces together about why, who, when, why are they after us? What do they know? What's going on?
See,
And
this
it's
is
all
why if
different.
you're a rent-a-goon, you don't take on Sergeant Gallagher and his military buddies.
Well, it just like you don't take on Seagal, you don't take on who else? Oh, Schwarzenegger, Stallone. Don't mess with them.
Well, of course, Andrew Davis's next film after this was Under Siege, that he brought Tommy Lee Jones back for.
And
My
fun
big question
fact,
with Under Siege is which actor runs away with that film? Is it Tommy Lee Jones or is it Gary Busey in drag?
fun fact, the Under Siege was what we would have been watching today, but because of Gene Hackman, I thought this would be a fun tribute to Hackman, and so I bumped Under Siege. We'll do it another time.
I will save my fun collection of Under Siege facts for another
Yeah,
day.
save them. Oh, Miss Swift over on Discord says I took typing and programming in high school. The typing class was so I could get better at using the computer. Um, uh, yeah, I would say in my high school, all my 4 years in high school, the only class I still use to this day is my typing class. I took it for a whole year. And of course, nobody takes typing anymore, do they? But that's the only class that has stayed with me my entire life. What about Ruth? Well, Gallagher's got a crime to solve. He knows something's up. Oh, Alex Peacock, maybe a Gary Busey month? I could. I've got so many other fun things like that where we
Well,
focus on something
Gary
for a
Busey,
month.
Point Break.
Yeah, I mean Gary
I,
Busey would be interesting. Yeah, maybe we can fit something like that in.
the Summer of Busey.
The summer of Busey. Yeah, yeah. I think I've probably told you guys the story of me meeting Gary Busey when I used to work at a grocery store, and I think I was the assistant front end manager at the time, and he came in, and he was just like a regular customer, but he's not a regular guy. You could tell. Yeah, so okay, Edward the Black Prince, a month of Busey, that's insane. I bet we could come up with four really good Busey movies. Um,
As I said, Point Break, Keanu,
yeah,
and Busey.
um, we've already done Silver Bullet many years ago, so we could do Point Break. We could do um, Under Siege.
Is it Vertical Limit or Drop Zone where Gary Busey is a parachuting FBI agent?
That's a good question. Who wants to Google that? Lethal Weapon, was he in Lethal Weapon?
He was the main. He was kind of the end of level boss bad guy in Lethal Weapon.
Okay.
Drop Zone. Wesley Snipes and Gary Busey together at last.
So I like to think that, back in the day, when, yeah, back in the 80s when we were dealing with the nuclear threat, nuclear war, nuclear winter, that you would just hope that the people in charge were trying to come to some kind of peaceful understanding. But you always kind of figure it's got to be like an action movie. Someone behind the scenes does not want it to happen. That military industrial complex will always want war, but people will always want peace. But that's what makes a really good action movie. And it probably plays out in real life too. Oh, Predator 2
We
as well. Johnny
Predator
Devick and Miss
2.
Swift.
We did Predator 2.
We did Predator 2, I believe. Yeah, that was also with Danny Glover. We
I
did that a
can't
few
remember
years
whether,
ago.
whether I can't remember whether we did the original Predator or whether that's one I missed.
No, we did not do the original Predator.
The original Predator, aka the most homoerotic film known to the 80s, with
That is a
Arnold
classic.
Weathers admiring each other's rippling muscles.
Well, okay. All right. I might need to.
Like,
So, yeah, here's the thing I
the
might
way
be
that each time we see Tommy Lee Jones now, just to show he's up to no good, he's in a different disguise now in every scene.
Yes, because we don't recognize him. He's like Clark Kent. Put on a hat and glasses and you just don't recognize him.
I remember in one of the episodes of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, they had a time travelling villain, Tempest, who took the
Mm.
mick out of the galactically stupid Lois Lane.
Yes.
She'd never realised as Tempest went, Clark Kent, Superman, Clark Kent, Superman, Clark Kent, Superman.
Where, James, where are you? Okay, hold the fort for like 5 minutes. I have to sign something else. I'll be right back, guys.
Nice book depository you're hanging out in, Mr. Henke. I'm sure a book depository that was being overlooked by Boyette only yesterday. Again, yeah, these streets are all looking very familiar from a series of Andrew Davis films, from The Fugitive and Above the Law, through to Chain Reaction. The conspiracy deepens as Henke's mother's house has also been filled with vast quantities of Illinois State Nazi Party propaganda. Nothing says Illinois State Nazi Party like the local bingo hall. It's a welcoming establishment. And again, like a lot of this film, this is shot on location. So most of the Chicago stuff is shot in actual bars, actual houses. Andrew Davis doesn't go in for a huge amount of building sets in studios when you can just go somewhere real that looks real because it's real. See, so we've got military industrial complex goons and now Nazi goons. I think now we're going to be meeting one of my favourite supporting actors slash characters in this thing. Chicago PD. And we have Dennis Franz as Milan Delic. This is now part of my Dennis Franz extended cinematic universe. Because during the pandemic, I basically watched all of Hill Street Blues, and he did this coming off the back of Hill Street Blues, which had ended in 1989. And in that, Dennis Franz played two characters: corrupt cop Sal Bernadetto, who committed suicide off screen, and later on, slightly corrupt detective Bunce. And ever since, I've thought that Bunce was just Sal Bernadetto in witness protection, and that every role Dennis Franz has played since then has been Sal Bernadetto being moved into a different witness protection scheme. Whether it's this, Die Hard 2, NYPD Blue, they're all Sal Bernadetto. It's all connected. Yeah, and the director Andrew Davis was particularly pleased to get Dennis Franz in this because he'd been a big fan of his performance as Bunce in the last couple of seasons of Hill Street, where of course his sidekick there was Sid the Snitch, played by Peter Jurassic, who most of us probably know better as Londo from Babylon 5. No, Alex, I don't think Hill Street does loop into the whole homicide, life on the street, law and order universe, which I think that universe includes the X Files because you've got a character from that. Uh, Law and Order. Munch crosses over into an episode of the X Files. And anyway, isn't everything all part of a dream sequence from St. Elsewhere anyway? These are our military industrial complex goons.
Okay. So, picking up where I left off.
Well,
Um,
Dennis Franz has shown up, so I've just explained how this and every other role he's played are Sal Bernadetto from the Hill Street Blues in Witness Protection.
yeah, that's what he's most known for. I
But, he,
found one of
but
his.
he's most known for either Bunts in Hill Street or Sifowitz in NYPD Blue,
Uh,
both
yes,
of
I know him
whom,
from NYPD Blue.
both of whom I insist are Sal Bernadetto from Hill Street in Witness Protection.
Yeah, Hill Street. Yeah, that was like the original gritty um, TV cop show.
Yeah, well, Hill Street had just ended this in this year, which was why Andrew Davis was able to get Dennis Franz in his film.
And he always plays the same kind of character, which
Yeah,
I find very charming. He's very good at it. He was also in, I believe it's called City of Angels with Nicolas Cage, Meg Ryan, and he played a fallen angel, I guess. And he was kind of a what like a gritty fallen angel, just like the kind of character he plays. So there's are they starting to unravel Mr. Hankey's identity?
well, they've been to the Nazi bingo hall.
Hmm.
Now they've gone to the Nazi book depository that overlooks the station that Tommy Lee Jones was hanging around at while disguised as a trendy priest. And then, just to make it clear that this is all a dress rehearsal for The Fugitive, we have a scene with sort of a big march through the streets of Chicago. Although in this case, it's not an Irish day, some sort of St. Patrick's Day parade.
Right. Yeah, this is these bringing back fond memories of The Fugitive. It's been a while since I have revisited it. I might have to add it to the watch party list. It really is a good movie.
Well, it's one where it's surprising that it's actually any good when you hear that they were filming it largely without a script and were making it up as they went along. Because apparently, in the original script, when they started filming, the one-armed man was going to turn out to have been hired by Sam Gerard to frame Richard Kimball for murder because Sam Gerard had cocked up an operation and Richard Kimball had killed his wife.
And of course, that that the whole story of the fugitive stems from a supposed real life event where I don't recall they ever did find a one-armed man. It was always the doctor was presumed guilty because they never did find a one-armed
it was
man.
the Sam Shepherd case, I believe,
Something
and
like that.
he got out of prison appeal, got struck off as a doctor, and then became like a professional wrestler.
Oh, go figure. And I think he was arrested but not convicted, or maybe he was convicted.
I think he was convicted and then cleared on appeal.
Maybe. So yes, here we have the difference between this march and a parade. Um, oh man, I guess we are far into this movie. Well, we have about 40 minutes left. It's moving along.
Yeah, Sam Shepherd was an osteopath. He was convicted of the murder of his pregnant wife, but the conviction was overturned by the Supreme Court.
We never did discover who really murdered her, but it made for a good movie. Um, okay, so Miss Swift, that picture that you have posted about the Bloodhound Gang, I know that reference. Does anybody else over in Discord know that reference for the Bloodhound Gang? It's an obscure reference. I didn't think anybody else knew of that show that show even existed. Yes, Alex Peacock. It was a PBS children's program. Yes, Calvite. Good job. Yeah, 321 Contact. Way back in the day. Oh boy, that takes me back. So one thing about Dennis Franz, every time he's on screen, I find it interesting. He just looks like a cop. He looks like a detective. I don't care what role he's in. He always just looks the role.
The thing is, though, Andrew Davis said that when he was filming these things in Chicago, he did have actual cops filling in some of the supporting roles. So, like, I think when he did Code of Silence, he said he had Dennis Farina in the cast, who at the time
Ah,
was still working as a policeman.
yes, yes, I recall that Dennis Farina was a real cop who turned to acting. Miss Swift, man, you are on it. Now I do have that theme song also stuck in my head. And it went on for just a couple episodes, and I think they remade it years later.
Oh, the hounds have come for Sharon. So, was Dennis Franz a cop? Let's see. Well, he was in 101st Airborne in Vietnam.
My computer just glitched.
I don't think Dennis Franz was ever a policeman, but
Mm-mm.
he was actually basically his wiki says that he was
Mm.
typecast as a cop early in his career, and by his own count, the character of Sifowitz was his 28th role as a police officer.
Yeah, and that might be why every time I see him, not that he has to be typecast, but that's just who I see him as. Okay, so as the story is going, I think is the conspiracy starting to unravel a little bit, and we're starting to understand what's going on behind the scenes.
But more people waving oozes around
It,
to little effect.
And the dishwasher, he just happened to have a gun back there. It's Chicago. I guess everybody has a gun.
You see, the military-industrial complex should have sent in some Valley girls with Mac 10s. They'd have sorted this out.
There's that guy again. He's what I call the heavy. He's the bad guy. Though we don't know at this point exactly
He
how
shot
bad,
Sally
he's a bad.
Bernadetto.
So now we finally see some snow, and I really am getting that Christmas vibe from this movie. Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas.
That's it. I'll make it look like I'm sticking up a liquor store.
Yeah, once again, you just have to let the magic of the movie take you away from your common sense.
This is the first time I've seen someone rob a liquor store and come away from it with a shotgun.
Because liquor store owners do have shotguns.
Which presumably they wouldn't be very keen on you stealing.
Yes. So that does make me sad that he got shot, but inevitably,
But
you
he
know,
doesn't
you don't
die.
have to get
He
shot.
goes on to go back into witness protection and reappear as Sifowitz a few years later.
Yep. So the only one of the only roles I remember him ever playing where he wasn't a cop was City of Angels, where he played that fallen angel. Other than that, every time I see him in a role, I think he's always been the cop.
Looking down his movie credits, there are a few clues that with the character names, with things like Detective Marino, Immigration Officer, Cop, Lieutenant
Hmm.
Milan Delic, Captain Carmine Lorenzo, Captain Cleghorn.
Well, fun fact: Steve Buscemi used to be a firefighter, but I didn't see him ever having a firefighter role. But in real life, he used to be a firefighter. Oh, here we go. That death stare. Ah, the plot thickens. Well, because he's making it pretty obvious he's a bad guy now. Yeah, Miss Swift, you learned that recently about Buscemi, and apparently on 9/11, he went out there on scene, and his firefighter training took over, and he actually helped on the scene of 9/11 and never sought any credit for it. But years later, it was the word had gotten out that he was there helping the on scene.
See, that should have at least got him a cameo in Backdraft.
So we have like less than 40 minutes. And so now we know there's a whole lot of people in this conspiracy. No one is safe. Everybody had better run for their lives
But
because
hey,
unless
look
you
in the
know who,
background. It's Christmas.
It is, yeah, now it's really Christmas.
Nothing,
Christmas in
nothing
Chicago.
says Christmas like labyrinthine conspiracies.
Exactly. Okay, so let's reference back to The Fugitive. And I believe was did that take place during the wintertime too? Does anybody remember? I think there was snow on the ground.
That there would have been
Um,
in part of it, but also because Richard Kimball hides out in Chicago for quite a while, doesn't he?
mhm,
Moonlights as a hospital porter,
mhm.
and he's still there. Well, he has to have been there as long as mid-March to be caught up in a St. Patrick's Day parade.
Exactly. Yeah.
Would it be covered in snow in mid-March? Surely not.
Hmm.
Unless, of course, St. Patrick's Day parades are everyday occurrences in Chicago.
Ah, no, that's right. They are mid-March. Yes, Cowbot.
Where they do
That
delightful
reference
things like dye the river green.
they do. I guess every year they do.
I take
Um,
it this river doesn't have much living in it in the way of fish.
I would not imagine it's safe to drink or swim in, but that's just me. So Cowbot made a reference to Die Hard. So that is definitely a Christmas movie. So,
It was released in August, though.
but it is, in my opinion, it is one of the best Christmas movies. So stay tuned for, we've got quite a while for Christmas.
Yep, Chicago is looking cold.
Ooh. Alex, St. Patty's Day movie next week is.
I know this was released in August as well, Cowbot, which
Oh,
is kind of one of these strange things about movies that are set at a certain time of year being released in the summer.
and if it's a movie about Christmas, it's always filmed in a tropical environment 6 months prior.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Swift. Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. It's a movie set at Christmas. It's
I
not,
get it.
it's
I
not
get it.
about Christmas.
This is a debate that we will probably have until the end of time. I love these debates. Um, we're all right. Everybody's right. So how about a St. Patty's Day movie? I might just stick with the one I already had set. Maybe Ben will do.
You see, because although this is set at Christmas, I wouldn't say the package is a Christmas movie because it's not about anything Christmassy,
Hmm.
unless you're kind of saying, well, Gallagher gets to meet his ex-wife and maybe rekindle a relationship with her. Well, no, he's mainly there to uncover a conspiracy and kick terrorist butt.
Yep, and for some reason they are just keeping him alive. They're chaining him up, they're knocking him out, but not killing him. And I think we've probably unraveled the point where he's the fall guy. I think they're trying to use them as the patsy to all of this,
Well, you've got
and
what
that's
you have one patsy who is undercover in the Illinois State Nazi Party and the Illinois State Nazi Party book depository that overlooks the conference center.
yeah. But for some reason, they're keeping Gallagher alive because I
Well,
think they wanted him to take the blame for Henkel's wife's murder, but they might want him for something else. It's very interesting.
maybe have him gunned down at the scene of the crime.
So yeah, there's a debate about any of these movies and the holiday references, whether they are a Christmas movie, Halloween movie, just because it takes place and there's parts of the movie that take place on a holiday doesn't make it a holiday movie. Um, I think the movie has to use the holiday as part of the plot point, as then you can call it a holiday movie. For
Yeah, yeah,
me
yeah. So,
though,
so for example, I would say Gremlins is a Christmas movie because that's
could be.
using things about Christmas as part of the plot. It's basically, in a lot of ways, taking off "It's a Wonderful Life" and doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah, and it could be. The beauty of the movies is that everybody from every walk of life, doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, we all go to the movies for entertainment, to enjoy ourselves, and to have fun. And our takeaways from them could be something totally different from what your neighbor's takeaway is.
I
So,
Krampus is back.
yep, and he's back. He's pretty, and this guy right here, he's supposed to represent Gorbachev. I mean, there's a striking resemblance.
He does look like the General Secretary. Yes,
Yep, and it's funny because at the time, um,
but those of us
right,
who've seen the Naked Gun know that that birthmark was fake.
yes. So I think that they were trying to kind of mirror real life politics. So we're supposed to think that that's Gorbachev, and we're supposed to the Gorbachev Reagan interaction. But this president doesn't strike me as a Reagan character. But you get the gist.
The
So
Reagan character would have jetted off to West Berlin to attend a David Hasselhoff concert and then shout, "Mr. General Secretary, tear down this wall."
yeah, Hasselhoff. Yeah, Hasselhoff was a big star over there.
Well, he is a big. And
Still,
The Germans do really worship the guy because when he did his concerts in West Berlin, he would do them right up close to the wall so all the people in East Berlin could hear them.
thank you, Calbot. 89 was Bush senior, so the election was in 88, so 89 would have been Bush. That is correct.
The least bad of the President Bushes.
The least bad. See,
Ooh,
this bad guy was doing it all wrong, all wrong. That's why he got knocked out.
yeah. You keep your distance from
You keep
your
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 distance.
from your prisoner with extensive military training.
Exactly. But you know what? This is what makes them fun. You can't apply who said that you can't apply common sense to movies because it really does take all the fun out of it. And it really wouldn't be a good movie if it was all the way it should be.
Well, you kind of have a movie where the president gets assassinated and there's a nuclear war at the end, and no one really knows why.
Oh, here we go. Get out of the house. Get out of the house. Okay, now the shit's about to hit the fan.
And she told him, "Get to Sal Bernardetto, keep him safe."
Get out of the house.
Because the military industrial complex has hit the phone and dialed up 0898 Renter Goon and sent them round.
So old Johnny Devick, he has no idea where we are in the movie. Too many commercials. We are an hour and 27 minutes in. and she's getting out of the house, and she's gotten the children out of the house, taking them to a neighbor
Who's
to
got a
have a
very
picnic.
attractive snowman ornament on their
Mhm.
snowman on their snow-free lawn.
And there's no other snow. So now we have this big treaty conference in Chicago, which would be the dignitaries from Russia, the dignitaries from the States. Everybody's going to be there. This is a sniper's dream.
And, and little do the bigwigs know that their own generals are plotting against them.
And you're right. They did Undiscovered Country. What year did that come out in? I think it was
91?
right after this one. They probably stole a little plot points. However, that plot point about conspiracies and the higher ups conspiring against you, it's not a new plot point. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
91. Yes, 91 Talbot. Yes, Alex Peacock, Miss Swift. Pictures of Senior Bush, Daddy Bush.
Read my lips, no new taxes.
Read my lips. Oh, he'll forever be known for that. And what was it? Thousand Points of Light.
And the thing about the no new taxes is basically he won the Republican primary because he was less ethical than Bob Dole. Bob Dole knew that they had to put taxes up to plug the budget. George Bush knew too, but he was happy to lie about it to win.
Ah, well, you know what? There is nothing new about lying in politics. Nothing new about it.
But it's one of those things that won him the primary, won him the general, and then lost him the subsequent general.
Going back to so Senior Bush. If you guys haven't seen Dana Carvey do his impression of George Bush, it is classic. You got to revisit it. He does the hands.
Oh
He's got
dear,
music on
Mr.
him.
Henke is about to have a nasty experience at his
Oh,
statesy print shop.
yes, we've got the real Hanky. Henkel, is it Hanky? Henkel.
Henke, Henke,
Hanky. So we've got the fake Hanky killing the real guy.
basically Lee Harvey Oswald in here. And again, this is another example of what I'm saying that said earlier that all this stuff is all filmed on location. Hardly any of it is on a set.
Yeah. So okay, so I can see if they're trying to do the Gorbachev Bush resemblance, I can see it.
I can see it, yeah.
Yeah, but definitely not Reagan. I was looking at Reagan and no.
Reagan was just
Yes.
one of the masks in the shop window. It was probably waiting for some ex-president bank robbers to come along and buy it. And now we get a nice little car chase sequence to kind of say to us that Andrew Davis has seen The French Connection and loved the hell out
Mhm.
of it.
That was a good movie.
Because if you watch it, it's the way it's being shot, the angles on Hackman, it's deliberately trying to look as much like that chase as it can.
So if you have this peace treaty going on and you've got a car chase, like this occurring not too far from the locale. Um, Secret Service and all of the local police would have shut it down.
We're relying here on the Secret Service not being very observant.
For anyone who has not seen The French Connection, I highly recommend it.
I also recommend The French Connection 2, which used to be the byword for how terrible a sequel could be, but it's actually very good. It's just doing something very different.
Okay, so The French Connection came out in 71. The French Connection 2 came out in 75.
A John Frankenheimer film, usually a director whose stuff is well worth watching.
And I have not seen the sequel. I will have to check that out. So right now, these three are the only hope to stop this.
You see,
The
I,
only hope.
I really like this. You kind of got a bit of an action movie thing going on, and they're all people in their 50s. You wouldn't get that now in the cinema.
Mm-mm.
You might get the odd film where you've got Liam Neeson soldiering on as a vigilante or something, but you don't get sort of like the whole leading cast of people that age anymore.
Oh, look at that. He's got his jacket on that he got shot in. What a trooper. So the plot is, I mean, it's really coming together.
So, which one of them has been cast as Mr. Scott for the purposes of our movie comparison? Is Dennis Franz going to be bursting in there like Scotty to phase up
Well,
Criminal West?
it's shouldn't it be the star? We don't want to give anything away, but it should be the star, the main star.
Oh dear, they've found the Patsy.
Well, to wrap up, they hired Hinky to
Yeah,
do it,
Edward the
but
Black Prince has made a good point about the French Connection that you want to get a physical copy of it if you can, because the streaming version has been edited now on every platform. But you
really,
also, if you're getting a physical copy, you don't want to buy the first Blu-ray release that kind of as a brown box. You want to buy the one that has a nice picture of Gene Hackman on the cover, because the first one, William Friedkin mucked around with the colour timing and made it look horrible. Whereas the second one has the colours as they would have looked in the cinema.
um, so Alex Peacock mentioned that French Connection 2 is on Disney Plus. Is that the one that has been edited?
No, no, it's the original French Connection that's been edited.
Oh,
And the thing is that because the Blu-rays that are out there now are old Fox mass market titles, now it's owned by Disney. When they
mm,
sell out, they're unlikely to get repressed because Disney doesn't do physical media.
that's true. Oh, Miss Swift made a comment about skipping the French Connection 3 that has Ed O'Neill as Popeye Doyle.
That is a TV movie.
Ah,
But if you like the
gotcha.
French Connection, there are a load of other films around the same time that are based on the exploits of the cop who actually inspired the French Connection. So you've got the Seven Ups that has Roy Scheider, who was also from the French Connection, and I think Badge 73, all about this same Chicago cop and his larger than life crime fighting.
So this is a very interesting scene coming up. So we just saw him make the comment, why don't we do, a meet and greet with the press? Which I thought was really interesting. You don't ever stray from the course. Don't ever do that.
Oh, and he is hiding behind that thing on the roof outside the Nazi book depository.
Yeah, and Secret Service hasn't seen him, hasn't even noticed him. Oh, Miss Swift, Popeye Doyle versus Frank Serpico. Mm-hmm. That's Serpico with Al Pacino. That was a really good movie. Got him.
Eddie Egan, that's the name of the detective who they based Popeye Doyle on,
Ah,
who, like Dennis Farina, segued into acting once they turned him into a fictional movie star. So he actually appears in the French Connection as Popeye Doyle's captain.
very good tidbit. Did not know that. Okay, round of applause. Good job, Gallagher. Nice shot. Good shooting.
No final words for you, Boyd.
Yes, Mad Matt made a comment. It's a huge conspiracy. They're all in on it. Makes you wonder just who is in on it.
It's
Everybody.
a bit like Star Trek 6, where Admiral Cartwright was conspiring with the Romulan ambassador and the Klingons.
And that's the thing about conspiracies. You never really get to the bottom of who's involved. But I like to take my father's opinion on conspiracies in especially in government agencies. And his theory was conspiracies and cover-ups are all fine and dandy, but generally you don't get a bunch of really smart people together in the government, smart enough to either conspire or keep it
Yeah, I mean
secret.
that's kind of basically why I enjoy conspiracy theories. But I don't generally believe them because I think that most people aren't competent enough to keep these things secret. So kind of it's like Nixon's people with Watergate. They're kind of at most at that level of competence where
Yeah,
they cock it up and get caught.
yeah,
So, so the idea that I don't know Stanley Kubrick fabricated the moon landings in a Hollywood studio and kept it quiet forever after that, that's just been a brilliance.
yeah,
Although Capricorn One does make a great movie out of just that sort of theory.
yeah. I love a conspiracy theory as much as the next person, but I always keep that in the back of my head when you try to work your way through these conspiracies and the truth to come out, because you always just want the truth. Sometimes it's a lot harder to get to it, but you know what? That's why I love the movies. They usually get everything figured out. We have a happy ending. There's a resolution, and now we have
I say
three
Sal
cheers.
Bernadetto is doing very well for someone who was shot in several places.
Mhm.
Give him a sling and an elastoplast, and he can run around like anyone.
But this is the movies. You get shot in the leg, you get shot in the hip, you get shot in the shoulder area, and
Just a
you're
flesh
fine.
wound.
Put a band-aid on it. Here's a Tylenol.
And here we have the Russian colonel and the American colonel.
And the American colonel. And they're probably thinking, we got it. We did it. We did it. There you go. End of the line. End of the conspiracy. So there you go. But you know what? That wasn't the end of the conspiracy because the shooter is still part of the conspiracy. So it goes on.
Until he's shot by someone else in the conspiracy. And there we are, the credit for Ike Pappas as himself.
There you go. Well, this has been fun. Even with my interruptions, the show must go on. That's how I look at it. Um, and I appreciate James being here and taking over in my absence. Um, so yeah, guys, what do you think? What do you think of this Gene Hackman classic? It was a lot of fun, and I think it holds up as a good action drama, cop, thriller, conspiracy, all of those things.
Hackman as always gives a very good performance. I've never seen him, I think, give a bad one. I think Andrew Davis always gives you a real sense of place with his films, so like the Chicago setting works well, and that supporting cast is so everyone who's in it is an interesting actor.
Yeah, you're right. Over on Discord, Mr. Furzel says, well, this is not a bad flick, but I see why it was overshadowed in '89 by other better films. Kind of dull or generic, maybe. Yeah, that was a lot of the reviewers had the same kind of feeling. It was solid, but not outstanding.
I think
Um,
I think the typical reviews of people like Roger Ebert gave it 3 stars out of 4.
And it was solid. I give it that. Very solid performances by actors that you would expect that kind of performance. Um, okay, well, old Johnny Devick. Let's see. Hard to follow with the ads, but seem good. Have to watch again to really get it. Yes, yes. Edward the Black Prince, interesting first viewing for me. Had me invested. Very good. Miss Swift says not bad. Let's see. Old Johnny Devick. Yes, it did have tough competition that year. And even, like I said, when it came out on video, everything else was on video as well. So it got lost in that too. Um, Okay, and let's see. Mad Matt says movie ran too long, too many plot pieces. I started to lose interest. Yeah, I can see that. Eric says, yeah, it was a nice movie, but I get why it did not get the attention the other movies got when it was released. Cowbot, enjoyable watch party, nice little conspiracy thriller, great cast. Hackman was wonderful. Ugh. Okay, I have to step out and take this. Hold on. Hello. Hey, Chad.
Yeah, I would agree with the Black Prince that it's not
Okay. All right, guys. Well, we can wrap it up, and we'll do this again next week. I appreciate all of you being here. So we're gonna I'm gonna push up Under Siege for a little bit because I've got a classic next week. I want us to get back to our roots as a group. We kind of all started doing this um, because of our love of 80s horror. So I would like to bring back a classic horror movie from the 80s we haven't done yet. And that is The Hitcher from 1986,
Ooh,
starring Rutger Hauer, C. Thomas Howell. It's been talked about a lot, but we are going to revisit and
and
get back
it's
to our roots.
that's one that there's only, I think, in the last 6 months made it out on physical media in the UK and the US, with
Yep,
Warner's second sight doing 4Ks and Blu-rays.
yep. And
And for a connection to the Week of Boosie, in the very awful sequel that was made many years later, Jake Busey, son of Gary, is the Hitcher.
so, you know what? This is going to be a great one for us to get back to our 80s roots. And we're getting into 90s horror as well. So, Creator VC is going into 95 to 99. So, if you all have a chance, give them some love, give them some advice, and we'll be continuing this on. So, all right. Well, I'm going to have to wrap this up and get back to my movers. So, all right. I appreciate you one and all for being here. We're going to do it all next week. So, thank you, James, for being here.
Yeah.
Bye. We'll keep in touch. Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.